Hello and welcome to another episode of Montclair News Lab. I'm Stefano Kadishi. This week, we look at what it's like to navigate life with a disability. We start with News Lab reporter Eric Rivera, who shows us the difficulties students on campus face daily.
This is a story of two Montclair students, their disabilities, and how they go about their daily campus routine. Michael Wardles is a junior history major with a severe form of muscular dystrophy, a disease that deteriorates one's muscle mass and has forced Wardles into a mechanical wheelchair.
Over time, the muscles stopped working. And when I was 3 years old, they took a biopsy of my leg. So I've had the condition for basically my whole life.
Jeffrey Vasquez is a freshman computer science major with caudal regression syndrome, a disease that keeps the lower half of the body from developing.
My lower back, because it's not like fully developed. In my ear, when I was born, it was born like halfway, and because of that, I can't really hear on this side either.
For Wardles, getting around campus is not easy.
So the first thing I struggled with was opening doors. Now some of the doors have the push buttons to open them, but not all of them have that. Another issue is the bathroom. Sometimes the bathroom has two doors in it. The bathrooms in Richardson Hall and Dixon Hall, they have double doors to get in there. It would be really nice if they only had one of those doors, because opening one door is easier than opening two.
Wardle says getting into the bathrooms is only the first challenge.
The major issues are doors, soap dispensers, being able to reach those, being able to turn on a sink, turning off a sink. Also reaching the paper towels is quite a problem. But I think if we could maybe put the soap dispensers a little bit lower and the paper towel rolls a little bit lower.
Wardles and other disabled students are supported by the Disability Resource Center. Wardles says the center is helpful, but it could be better.
I think because of the Resource Center, I think they've handled people with disabilities pretty well. But I think there should be some improvements with the bathrooms, like I said.
Vasquez also has day-to-day struggles on campus.
I don't walk as fast as most people, but overall the buildings are kind of, far-ish for me. I went to the school of business yesterday, and I thought it was really weird that there was a button on the inside, but not on the outside for some reason.
Vasquez thinks the Disability Resource Center overall serves the student population.
The services that the school provides with the DRC and stuff, I would say they're pretty useful, especially since it has those shuttle buses that they offer, the buttons, that's open doors and stuff, and the elevators too. There's elevators in basically every building. They said that they could offer me breaks during exams, so I could record the audio from classes.
But like Wardles, Vasquez sees room for improvement.
I would say that there should be access to private bathrooms and stuff, because I feel the bathrooms that they have right now are kind of iffy. Some of the doors are probably hard to get into.
We reached out numerous times to the director of the Disability Resource Center. The director told us, "I am unavailable to assist. If you are interested in an interview, perhaps we can schedule something for the spring semester." Both Vasquez and Wardles have a message to students with disabilities.
There is a community here for people that have disabilities. You're not alone. Don't be afraid to reach out,
If we come together and we talk about it, make the school more accessible, I think it might be better.
For Montclair News Lab, I am Eric Rivera.
Late last week, Eric was among a group of student journalists who meet every semester with the president. He got a chance to ask about how the university can do better when it comes to accessibility issues on campus.
So I've been doing a story with students with disabilities here at Montclair, and they told me they have challenges getting into the restrooms, so opening the doors and reaching the sinks, turning it on and off, the paper towels, the soap dispensers. And myself, I go to the School of Communication, and I would like to have the push button in front of the doors. I know they have one in Moorhead, and I have to take the elevator up. So if there's a situation where the elevator doesn't work, I was it will be easier just to go to the front door and like get into the school communications. So what are you going to do to fix these issues?
What I would say is, right now we're in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which, as you know, is the sort of law that governs a lot of this thing. But that's the lowest bar. I would like to set the bar substantially higher than just compliance with the law, because compliance with the law lets you leave, and you know this because you experience it on a daily basis. It lets you leave certain things in place because they were predating the law, or they're grandfathered in. That's legal, but our goal should be more than legal. I do know that there's frustration with elevators and elevator maintenance, and elevators go out, and we've prioritized fixing that as an issue. I have sitting in my email a pretty substantial plan to deal with some of the elevator maintenance issues, because that's not just an inconvenience for some folks on campus. That's fundamentally an access issue. So I don't have a date that by X whatever all the elevators are going to be fixed and there'll never be an elevator breakdown in the future. But I'm well aware that that's a frustration and an unacceptable problem going forward, that for certain students, they arrive at class and it's like, how am I supposed to get to the classroom?
In the meeting, President Koppell also addressed other questions. On Bloomfield College's merger with Montclair State, he said this is good for Montclair, potentially providing more academic opportunities for Montclair students. On safety, in the wake of a recent event at Bone Hall, he said the campus is safe, and that's the experience of most students. And on campus traffic, Koppell discussed that the university is considering solutions to the traffic issue, such as changing class times to coincide with train schedules. Surviving a natural disaster is hard enough, but with a disability, it's even harder. That's the premise of a new documentary by journalist and professor Jason Struther of the School of Communication and Media. He looked at how Superstorm Sandy affected the disabled community. We'll talk with him after this excerpt from his film.
Superstorm Sandy took the lives of 117 Americans, according to the CDC. The leading cause of death was drowning, and many of those victims died inside of their homes. It's unclear how many of them had a disability, but there were many reports about disabled people being stranded without electricity or food. And some observers worry that more severe weather events like Sandy, as well as climate change, will make these kinds of emergencies even more common.
I met with Javier Robles, who teaches in the Department of Kinesiology and Health at Rutgers in New Brunswick.
What if I'm dependent on a personal care assistant coming to my house and getting me out of bed, right? If there's a flood or an emergency, and we saw this in Sandy. What if that person's stuck in their own home and can't get to me? Then, am I at a greater risk of dying or having something else happen because of my physical disability or inability to get into my wheelchair? And the answer is yes.
A fire truck drives through a neighborhood.
Advocates claim that Sandy revealed that authorities throughout the region didn't have a plan on how to safely evacuate or shelter people with disabilities. And in 2013, a federal judge in New York agreed. He said the city violated this community's rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA. The court ordered emergency management to create protocol that accommodates people with various kinds of physical and sensory disabilities. There was just one catch.
It actually does only apply to New York.
Seton Hall Law School's Duran Dorfman explains that suits would have to be filed in New Jersey and every state in order to force officials to make disaster planning more accessible for people with disabilities. But it's a risk because not every judge might rule the same as the judge in New York did. Dorfman says amending the ADA is another option.
I argue in an essay I wrote that an imagined future for the ADA should include a chapter on emergency preparations. However, I think in the current political state that we are, where we have much division within Congress, within the House, we probably will not be able to pass something like that, and that is, a shameful issue.
Montclair News Lab's Henry Tai recently sat down on Zoom with Professor Struther. Here he is in his own words.
So I'm a 2003 graduate of Montclair State University. In 2006, I moved to South Korea, to Seoul, South Korea, to try my luck at freelancing. I teach a course called Disability in Media, how people with disabilities are portrayed in film, TV, journalism, social media. And I'm also the founder of Lens 15 Media, New Jersey's first news agency focused on telling stories with the disability angle. I was living overseas when Hurricane Sandy hit New Jersey back in 2012. I'd been based in Seoul, South Korea at the time and doing regional reporting throughout Asia. But what got me interested in the connections between climate change and disability was actually a typhoon that hit the Philippines. In late 2013, Typhoon Haiyan, I went there to cover the aftermath of the storm a couple months later. And while I was basically following a team of cadaver dogs through a mangrove swamp, it really struck me. How would someone with a disability like mine, I have a low vision disability, how would I survive a climate change driven superstorm? Now that I'm back in New Jersey, I wanted to explore how all of these climate change phenomena are impacting the state's disabled community. And this year is coincidentally the 10-year anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. So I thought this was an opportune time to look back and see what were the failures a decade ago and how have these systems changed or haven't changed since then. Hurricane Sandy revealed that New Jersey, and as well as other regional authorities, were not prepared at all to protect the region's disabled community. Many people drowned inside of their homes.
For more information on resources for students with disabilities at Montclair, go to www.montclair.edu/disability resource center. Next week on News Lab, a residence hall robbery. Do students feel safe? We'll ask them.
We asked Montclair State students what their reaction to the crime was.
Honestly, it was expected. I mean, like, we always joke about Bone being like the slums. And so, like, I feel like it's par for the course.
Concerned for my friend because she dorms here, and I just didn't think it would, like, happen here at all.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of Montclair News Lab. Until next time, I'm Stefano Kadishi.